estate man, but the difference is this time I am not in Tokyo. Now, if you didn't know, if you're one of the few people who follow my channel, you know that I am from Shibuya, Tokyo, and my channel is about real estate and life in Shibuya, Tokyo. But yeah, I'm married and I have 2 kids, and then one of the important things that I've always had is for me personally, naturally for me, speaking English to my kids since they were born, I always did. But I always tried to, like, and I believe in education, but in a looser model of education. So this will be my 3rd time since both my kids were born that I've taken extended trips abroad. We took the first one was Hawaii for 2 months in 2013, and then the second one was in 2014 for 4 months in Vancouver. And now is 2018, and since the end of June, and we're coming up here on the end of August, we spent a couple more months here in Hawaii. And at first I rented this this house here. I should introduce, this is Derek right here. And I recently rented this house from Derek's
this is my stepdad.
Stepdad or father? Yeah, we're going to use the word father-in-law. Stepdad, right? Stepdad. And then, but then, yeah, I befriended Derek here, and he's really become a really fun, you know, like friend and like
word,
like loose member of the family. You know what I mean? As we've been here, and one of the very interesting things about Derek is. If you haven't known, I've lived in Tokyo for over 20 years, and like Derek has lived in Japan a long time too, and now he's living here in
not as long as you have. I mean, here in Kailua, and just here on Oahu. But I lived in Japan for I don't want to say lived because that makes it sound like I'm never going there again. But I have lived in Japan for about 10 years, and right now I'm living here. And I work in Honolulu, but I was in Nagano for a lot of that time. And I also I worked in Tokyo for a year and lived in Saitama in Tokorozawa City. And I also lived in Hiroshima for a year. So
okay. Yeah, so what I thought today, what we do to the people watching the video is we're just going to talk about life in Japan and life in Tokyo or Honolulu, and just have a round, sort of unscripted conversation about a lot of things. Touch a little bit on real estate, touch a little bit on life in Japan, career, wherever the conversation goes over the next hour, I thought.
Awesome.
And I should say, if there is some little points where my kids jump into the video and stuff like that, that is artistic license.
Yeah, artistic license.
Okay, well. First of all, we could talk about a little bit about what the meteorologic conditions are here today. Yeah, you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So as you heard, this is Hurricane Lane coming, and it's the biggest hurricane that's hit Hawaii, and I guess it's in it's been a while. I think since the Hawaii became a state in 1959, I guess, or around about that time, and it's the second biggest one to have hit. The biggest one was Hurricane Iniki in 1992, and the one right now is a Category 4, so it's less than the other one, but it's the second biggest one to have hit the state, and since it's become a state, and it's not common at all to have hurricanes here in Hawaii, I guess, because
it's not common.
Yeah. It's really uncommon because it's such a small island out in the middle of the ocean, and it's not really, it doesn't have the right. The conditions are right for hurricanes and for tropical storms, but it's unusual that one actually forms and actually hits the island like it is doing.
That's a bit of a surprise because if viewers didn't actually know, I would say about 10 typhoons or hurricanes.
Yeah, like every year in Japan, right?
Hit Japan every day, and it's really kind of neat because I think that in some ways, us people who live in Japan, or my wife, a Japanese wife, we're a little bit too casual, I think, in terms of being the typhoon, because it always comes and
and it's like a fact of life. But and the typhoons that hit Japan, unless you're like in the south part of Okinawa, I mean, it's usually not horrible. I mean, there's always like landslides and of course people dying, and that's very sad. But usually they hit and they're caught like a day of rain, and then it's past, and then
Yeah,
We're just waiting for the next one.
And I
right?
should talk about too, like in terms of the engineering of a place like Shibuya, it is really a concrete jungle where like when the water, like there's all designed within the super city right now that it is, like places where water will flow and it to be dispersed into the ocean. Where this is not a really environment like this. Like we're in Kailua right here, and it's more carved. Like the lifestyle is carved into the natural surroundings more than Tokyo.
So it's a lot more susceptible to to kind of really big storms like this, more than Tokyo. But usually the storms in Japan will hit from the south, and then they'll kind of work their way up. And it's whereas here it's there's not really a lot of land for it to break over, because in Japan it'll hit the land, and the land is kind of what minimizes the impact of it, because it has to go over a bit of land to lose its force. But here it just keeps building up in the ocean, and it hits really these tiny specks of islands, and then it's just 1992 it was just catastrophic, but so far it's looking okay out there. So
as the investor in me, should I be investing in Hawaii construction companies next week on the I don't know, maybe the New York Stock Exchange? Actually, but this is a good oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
As a short-term investment, maybe it'd be good to do it. But I think we kind of talked before, like long-term Hawaii. I mean, if we're looking at like a couple decades out, I think it's probably a good market for short-term investment. But I just think because of climate change and stuff, it's going to make it less desirable for people, because this kind of thing that we're seeing now is going to become increasingly common, and especially with the sea predicted to rise up, whatever, half a meter, a couple feet by the end of the century and stuff. I mean, it's just, I think that it's going to make it less desirable for people to really want to move here. But you never know. I mean, it could be not as severe as they're saying. But
I don't know really what to make of this at times. Actually, this, if you don't know, the location where we are is really a unique location right now, and like we won't. Maybe you've seen it in some of the other panning shots we'll do here in terms of the video, but where this house sits is actually on top of an escarpment, or almost a knob or a hill like that. And over one side of the hill it faces Kailua Beach, and on the other side of the hill it faces Lanikai Beach. It's a very spectacular. This is a spectacular piece of real estate, is it not?
Yeah, right now, I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, it's got views, ocean views from three sides, and it's great. I mean, pretty much anywhere in Hawaii right now has great real estate value. But I'm just like the part of me who's like a little bit more skeptical is, thinking that a lot of these really like so-called desirable places, I'm thinking like Hawaii or Southern California or Miami and stuff around Florida. I think they're really going to be changing like the kind of values and stuff over the next 10 or 20 years, just because of the amount of climate change that's going to happen, and especially if there's like all it takes is one big earthquake in California and that entire market's gone.
It's interesting because like my evaluation as like if you didn't know, if you've never seen this channel, I'm pretty heavily invested in Central Tokyo real estate. And Central Tokyo, the most valuable land in Central Tokyo is not against the water. Whereas you'd see in like American real estate investing, the most valuable land is considered the one that is closest to the water. Now, the reason the land in Japan, for example, close to the water is not the most valuable is because of the danger of the ocean and the tsunami. So like the most valuable land in for example, Tokyo, is considered the land on the most solid rock in the high places. So traditional Japanese investors, for example, love the name Akasaka or Aoyama. And these are, like Akasaka means red hill, or Saka means hill, or like there's a place near Shibuya called, Can you turn your video down? There's a place in Shibuya in Meguro called Aobadai, and Dai is like a plateau. And like, so in a way, I'm interpreting what you're saying right now, your commentary about like how Hawaii real estate values will be in flux because of the global warming. In a way, it's kind of going to a Tokyo model.
It's a little bit. I mean, that's just a possibility. I mean, of course, nothing can happen, or they're gonna, put in seawalls and stuff, so it won't be as big of an issue. But I just think the places that have traditionally been really high real estate markets, like Southern California and Hawaii, are really at risk for losing a lot of that value because of climate change, rising sea levels and stuff. Because Tokyo, up until whatever the beginning of the Meiji era, it's pretty much a little like fishing town. It was just a marsh essentially, and when Edo kind of started growing a lot, it's a little bit like Waikiki. Like Waikiki was, up until 70 years ago, it was just a marsh. It was like a mud flat, and it just started exploding. So that's kind of what's happened in Tokyo, and even in Waikiki, you mentioned how the coastal real estate points aren't that great in Japan, at least not in Tokyo. I think probably a big reason for that also is that there's a lot of there's shipping and ports and stuff that are kind of on the water, and they are more susceptible to kind of the elements.
Well, the land is actually considered loose. Yeah. What I mean is there's a whole area, let's say Chuoku, or the reclaimed land, for example, Shinagawa. Shinagawa, technically speaking, in Japan, the Japanese traditional real estate investor, is a really bad location. Shinagawa means the shipping river, I guess, or the
goods river or something.
Yeah, the goods river. If we were to translate it to a literal, right now it's a place name, but if we look at the traditional meaning of the kanji, it speaks of a weak kind of land and that along the water and that. Oh, but that's interesting, the comment that you made that there could be some seawalls built and some engineering done.
Because they're talking about it, but if they do that, it's going to take away from kind of the value of the surrounding properties, because suddenly we're going to be getting walls out there, and it's probably not going to go down hugely unless there's a massive disaster. Talking a volcanic eruption that destroyed half of Oahu or something. But it's probably safe over the next 50 years or something. I'm just thinking that it's a place that I think it's kind of a market that was going to be going down. If you look at the trend, over the next 100 years, it's probably going to be going down quite a bit. Whereas somewhere like Northern Europe or Northern Canada, it's probably going to be going up quite a bit because it's beginning to get more temperate.
Hokkaido.
And Hokkaido, yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
Japan, and so I don't know. That's just my thought on it. I think it's right now it's an amazing place. It's a great location, and we got the ocean, 3 sides to the house. You can walk there in 5 minutes, but it's just it's a little bit kind of a dangerous point to be at a little bit, and we're seeing this now with this hurricane because there's essentially nowhere the people here on the island can go. They can't just drive 50 kilometers inland like you could in Tokyo, or get on a Shinkansen and go up to Kailua for a couple days. Here it's you kind of really can't escape from it. So
is it a possibility that you're over extrapolating?
I could be, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I tell my viewers I don't know. I'm just I don't know. So,
I'm talking just kind of kind of a dire scenario of what it could be looking like.
Blade Runner Hawaii.
Yeah, Blade Runner Hawaii. It's just because I think that people have kind of underestimated the impacts of climate change.
Okay.
And the kinds of storms that up until now, like Hurricane Lane, would have been considered a really uncommon storm. But now I think we're going to start seeing this kind of storm becoming more and more common every year. And it may not always hit Hawaii, but things like Katrina and Hurricane Sandy, in the United States, that kind of thing is becoming more common because of just.
Well, what if for people that I'm not a meteorologist, but I do really like the study of weather, and if a lot of people don't know, what a hurricane is basically a heat transfer from the middle of the planet to both the north or the south, and so if you're interpreting that the center of the Earth is getting hotter because of the directness or the carbon or extra carbon in the atmosphere, I don't know, is getting hotter, for example, it's just moving it. So we're having more big weather events because the center of the Earth needs to cool itself because it's becoming too hot.
It's probably more the temperature of the water around the equator.
Okay,
so just the overall temperature, is heating up, and then it
creates a low pressure system.
As it heats up, it comes into contact with the cold air in the north and creates these swirling systems and stuff. And so it's just something to keep in mind. For a Japanese investor, Hawaii's still a really good, investment. I think. I just think that they have to be kind of careful going forward because this kind of storm and is going to become a lot more prevalent.
So your analysis though on property values here are based on like a weather event and everything like that. What about what about population? As people want to come here, like
and that's another issue is that there's. I think Hawaii's been relatively good about keeping the population growth down, but it's still it's on an upward trend, kind of like a lot of other tourist-heavy places. And to me, the second you start getting a lot of development, it actually, to me, I mean, in the short run, it might drive the prices up a lot, but in the long term, I think it actually diminishes the value sometimes because people they don't want to live in the center of. I mean, it depends on who you're talking to because, like, for me personally, I wouldn't want to live in. I mean, I am going to be moving to downtown Waikiki for my child. But, I mean, I would prefer to live in a place like this, and if this place were to become so built up like Waikiki, I know that there's a lot of people here that would not want to live in this kind of place anymore because, and they'd probably move to one of the outer islands where it's less developed. So,
well, I will just say, like, as the first time I came to Hawaii, I came through the Waikiki door because it was the one that was most open for the outside person, because there's a hotel to book there, and then you could come for 10 days. Yeah. And I fell in love with the islands from that first go. And then my second, third, and fourth times I came to the islands, I stayed in Waikiki. But now this time, like, my favorite beach before that we came to always was Kailua. And my wife is Japanese, and Kailua is very popular with Japanese young people and families to come for a beach. And there was a point that you could come to on the bus, very accessible, and I fell in love with it. And then I was lucky enough to link myself up with Dan, and I can tell you that having spent now 2 months in Kailua, that and my wife is Japanese, and she's very like she's used to as you can tell, my wife is a very Japanese woman. She's not really like a Japanese woman that's like been influenced so much by outside of Japan, and like even a person like most Japanese people when they come here go to Waikiki, and then she has really fallen in love with Kailua and the entire lifestyle here that you're just talking about. Because
I think you can kind of relax into it a bit. Waikiki is one of those places that it's fun to go for like a week if you're a tourist, but it's hard to kind of settle in and relax there just because there's so much going on. But here, it's so much quieter. There's so fewer people, more beaches that a lot like there's just not as many people on the beaches and stuff. And I mean, I think if you guys had been in Waikiki for the past 2 months, you guys would be ready to leave.
Yeah, in fairness though, I think for Hawaii though, if you have a car right now, I think it's really fair. Like, other than for me, like, this is just a commentary. I don't know, but aside from the rent, I find that the prices here are pretty comparable to Tokyo.
Probably.
Pretty close. I know there's going to be give and take I think things are probably a little bit cheaper in Tokyo. Yeah. Probably a little bit cheaper, but.
Yeah, I mean, definitely depends on where in Tokyo. I mean, if you're like going by the Tsubo, they don't use that measurement system here, but I mean, like the average lot here is probably like, I don't know, between 15 and 25,000 square feet. Okay. And I don't know how many tsubo that is.
That's probably like a lot. It's a lot is not even a really consideration for most families in Tokyo.
Yeah, they're just because it's just like a different market. But I mean, I think if you were to convert out the land value, it's probably comparable to Tokyo.
I should say one thing that's really good. There's a lot of like the cost of doing things in Japan or Tokyo is a lot like on the run. So what I mean, if you have a car and you live in Tokyo, it costs at least $300 a month to park it. Okay, and then if you want to go somewhere during the day, you usually don't get free parking unless you come to some of the Eon malls or something like that, which are trying to trap you into consuming their places anyway. Right? So what happens? What I mean by here in Hawaii, that's a really attractive thing. If you have a car and a family, and if you can just go to a beach and you can find the parking, you can basically have a wonderful day and like have a great aquatic lifestyle, fitness lifestyle for your gas price and insurance. So it's very attractive for me. And like at the end of the day, you're not running on a meter. What I do is, like you can park for 6-7 hours. You're not going to get a 5,000 yen bill.
No. Because people will park on the beaches all day long. 12 hours. They'll be there from dawn till dusk. And I'd say most of the beaches here are public. There are probably a few private ones here and there, but most of the beaches in Hawaii are public. So you can, as long as you can get to them, you can stay there for as long as you want. You just can't camp overnight, but there's a lot more flexibility than Tokyo. for that. But I mean, it's kind of like Waikiki. You know, you can't just park near the port in Waikiki all day. You know, they're going to charge you for that. But that's why it's nice on this side of the island that, you know, because there's fewer cars and fewer people, they can get away with people just, you know, parking there, putting their truck up for 12 hours.
Is there a van life? Is there a van life community here in Hawaii?
I think there definitely is. I've never like really seen it personally, but I've heard a lot of talk about it from my friends and stuff who lived here a long time.
I can tell you because like Kailua Beach here, I'm a real fitness freak, and that's one of the reasons that I really love this place, because my body is just detoxed to such a healthy point. It's just amazing. And I do go running every morning on the beach here, and there is a lot of activities in the activity of lots of cars. The parking lot is full, for example, at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I'm extrapolating. I do not know, but there are people going to the washroom. There are people showering, using the facilities.
Yeah, there are, and it's definitely it sounds bad, but it's easy to be homeless in Hawaii. You know, it's compared to places like if you were in part of North America, like Wisconsin or something. It's a lot easier to be, you know, to kind of have that kind of lifestyle here, just because it's a lot warmer. I mean, the coldest it ever gets here is maybe like 14 or 15 degrees. I mean, that's like a record.
Celsius.
Yeah, Celsius.
It would even get that low.
I think that's like a record. I mean, usually the lowest it's going to get here is around the lower 20s, like 20 or 21.
21.
But I mean, the average like year round is probably 25 degrees. And
it almost does not actually move. The Dallas doesn't seem to move. It just seems at this consistent point here. Yeah. And I should tell you, like, this is the windward side of the island too, where so the balance, I guess the would work almost like a rain shadow. What happens is the winds come in from the trade winds come in off the ocean here. They hit Kailua and the windward side of the island, and clouds always lighten when they hit. They want to lighten themselves physically when they hit a mountain or whatever, and it rains. And then that's why Waikiki is generally, when you come to Waikiki, it's almost sunny every day, because it's actually in a rain shadow.
It is.
So it's actually a really good idea. I thought for the. I didn't actually know 70 years ago that it was a marsh, but not only that, it took reclaimed land, or useless land, not useless land, but like poor quality land, and they put the resort there, okay? But at the same time, so if you come for a week, it's generally going to be sunny every day, so you're kind of selling the best weather in a contained area to the tourists.
And then, you know, even when it does rain here, if it's not a hurricane, it's usually just a passing shower. In Hawaiian, they call it a melka shower, or a melka shower. It's like a passing shower, and you'll look up and it's sunny, but then you'll get like a huge like downpour of rain followed by more sun and a rainbow or something. So it usually doesn't last very long, especially over on the other side in Waikiki.
So how long have you been here? Like, I always know the answer to everybody
6
a
months.
little bit, but like
6 months. I got here in April, and I've been working in Waikiki for 6 months now. I work at an international school there. And it's so it's.
And the transition from Japan to Hawaii, how's it been?
I miss the onsens.
Yeah, you miss the onsens.
I miss onsens.
Really,
and but it's been good. I've really enjoyed it here a lot. The job's been really nice. You know, it's definitely a different lifestyle. It's a lot more kind of like slow paced and just, you know, beach bum kind of thing, which is nice. But I do like miss the onsens, and I do miss the Four Seasons and that kind of thing. But you know, I've never lived in Hawaii. I mean, my mom grew up here, so but I've never lived here up until 6 months ago. And it's been great so far, actually.
Yeah, so. I don't at times know what to make of like the economic activity here in Hawaii. I don't know. I don't. To the viewers, I just don't. Everything I do here, I feel like a real beginner. I really do. There's so many things that I only feel like I've just scratched the surface to understanding. And my network of people here is so small, and my understanding of everything here is so limited. Would you like to talk about like the economic, what's happening right now?
Yeah, I really don't know that much about it. Sorry to say. Like, I mean, I think that it's still a pretty hard market to kind of break into, just because it's it's a pretty insular island, and it's really kind of a zero-sum game here. There's only so much land that you can kind of get onto. A lot of it's protected here in Hawaii, so you can't just like go off and build new places, new buildings and stuff. And so building is highly restricted here, more than almost any other U.S. state. And I just think the cost of living is really quite high. It's comparable to Tokyo or London or any other big metropolis. And
The hourly wage here, though, is the governor not trying to go for the $15 minimum wage?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
he's pushing it. It's a Democratic governor who's into that, and it's part of the platform here. But I think the sad thing is it really isn't going to make a huge amount of difference to people, just because it's the cost of living is so high as it is that a lot of people here are kind of transient. They'll come for a couple of years and then leave, just because it's, it takes a lot of just means to kind of live here long term.
This is a bit of a, as you know, I'm a real estate man and a real estate investor. This is this could be my interpretation of it. I can give it to you, and you can push back in either way you'd like. But my feeling that because it's such a small place for development, actually the land is actually the land, and that's the real advantage that you have and your family has over almost everyone here. If you have a family and you have land, then that gives, and you have like accommodations for your family and stuff like that. That is where people get the economic advantage.
Yeah.
Whereas you're coming here from the outside and you don't own the land, or you don't own your unit, or or you have to pay the exorbitant mortgage. Your mortgage is going to be high because of that land value, right? That land price is the great. Am I right in guessing this, or like?
Yeah, because I mean, unless you're already situated here, or you've had family land here, like I said, it's really hard to break into. And like, I mean, Dan's family, my stepdad's family, has been here for quite a while, for over 80 years.
Okay, so
and,
almost 100 years.
Yeah, so before Hawaii even became a state, and back then it was a lot cheaper than it is now. But if you look at some of the outer islands in like Hawaii and Maui and stuff, I mean, like 1 acre of land, which is, I don't know, probably 600 tsubo or so.
Yeah.
That it's like it starts at around $2 million just for the land, for 1 acre. But you go back to somewhere like Montana, and it'll be like pennies or something.
I can just tell you, like anecdotally, that my friend, I have another good friend here, Chris, and he's a real hustler. Like he's good at saving his money, and he's saved up a very healthy, 6-figure savings amount, and that he's built up slowly over the last 10 years, and he even finds it he's a diligent guy. He's a diligent guy, and he watches himself in every way, but even he finds it like everyone's hoping that the market will come down a little bit so they'll have a better chance to get in. It's very, I really do actually. I can almost some ways hope for a correction in some ways so that people can have a chance.
Yeah.
I really, and that's as an investor. I don't know.
I think the difference though is that because it is more of a zero-sum kind of game here, it's not in a bubble where it's just expanding without a reason. I mean, it's so high here because there's limited space
and desirability.
Yeah, and the space they've pretty much completely built everything they can build. So any space that is going to be developed or bought in the future, it has to be purchased from someone who already owns the land. And a lot of times the native Hawaiians aren't going to sell the land, and families, like you said,
they're not. They're not going to sell it because you're giving away. I talked to someone. My wife's Japanese friends came here the other day, and I told them that if you actually sell your land, you're actually selling away the future of your family. Like you're in a way. The money you take is selling away the economic advantage of your future generations. I really mean it like that.
Assuming nothing changes.
Yeah,
so then, then it's true. But I mean, another way to look at it is, there's places down in Waikiki, and you run into the same situation in Tokyo where you have these 2 massive brand new buildings, and right between them is this like 100-year-old house that's falling down, and it's one like Obachan, or old lady, who just doesn't want to move, and she's probably been offered millions for that. And
I kind of like those Obachans, so I really do. In a way, I'm like, wow, you actually held out. Because I never hold out.
But then at some point, what's going to happen is I think you're actually hitting diminishing returns because you're not really preserving the longevity financially anymore. Because at that point, that person's eventually going to die, and the people who inherit the house or take it over are probably going to sell it as quickly as they can.
They would have been better. They would have been better. So, like like going with development. And one thing that's people might not like it or not, but Tokyo does not have a housing crisis because they build.
Yeah.
They build. You know.
Yeah, all the
just build,
reclaimed land and stuff. And I was flying out of Haneda, 6 months ago, and I mean, I'd only been at that airport one time, but I was just amazed. The entire thing is out on that on the island.
I should tell you, I was there 2 months
or
ago.
something, and
2 months ago, and it is amazing that the building that's going on there right
Yeah.
now. I think their building actually looked like, I don't know, because there's so much building going on in Tokyo right now. It looked like they're building an entire new terminal.
Yeah, they might be. I mean, I know that they're prepping for this 2020 Olympics bid, which is, that could fill up a whole nother video, because I think that was a really bad financial decision on Japan's part to try to host the Olympics again. But
well, you could talk about that. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
I think that Japan will probably eke out with not losing money on it because they already have a lot of the infrastructure, but the Olympics has become something for especially poor countries that it's such a huge drain on, like I know in Nagano, they're still paying higher taxes
from the 1998
from
games.
the 1997 or 98 games. They're still paying higher taxes from it. And what did they get?
Doesn't make any sense to me.
To me, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, you raise the profile of the country in the world, and you get to advertise all this cool new tech. Like they're doing the maglev trains. What are they called in Japanese? What's the name for maglev?
I don't even know.
Maglev. No, it's I can't remember what it is, but yeah, there's an actual word.
Shinai no Shinkansen.
No, it's something else, but
anti-gravity system. I don't know.
I mean, it's
that's a waste.
It's cool.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cool, but it's just like Japan is a company or is a country that seems
company. Yeah, people say that Japan Inc.
That was I misspoke.
Yeah,
but it
fake
news.
It does act like a mercantile empire in some ways still. So people do like extrapolate or interpret it as like Japan Inc. Yeah.
It's just that Japan has so much debt as it is. I mean, most of it's locally held, of course, but. It just has so much debt that...
Can I push back on this for a second?
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'll push back on this for a second. I used to be like more of a libertarian kind of guy and everything like this, and I used to think that all this debt and stuff like that was like... well, if you didn't know, viewers didn't know, basically Japan's population is shrinking, okay, but the older population is expanding.
Yes.
So what they're trying to do with printing they're printing money or borrowing money or selling bonds to themselves or buying their own bonds, right? What they're trying to do is two things. They're trying to at least, they're actually trying to do three things in my interpretation. They're trying to keep the healthcare system going, okay? They're trying to at least pay the pensions off, okay? And the third prong is they're trying to do building, okay? Because Japan does not have that much social welfare, okay? So they would rather have the younger men or the men in the workforce building things with using the fiat money. And that's where I think actually I interpret the fiat in the Keynesian system is actually brilliant, because what happens is you print the money and then you can actually get masses of men to build things based on the power of the state to create the money. So at least even if there was a bankruptcy in Japan or a bond default, which there can be because they would just keep printing the money. They would keep printing the money.
Well,
but at least you end up with a great infrastructure.
Yeah.
Which means it's a big real estate investment.
Yeah.
Actually, in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, so it's good that they're developing infrastructure and stuff. But I mean, if you look at the Japanese economy, like there hasn't been any kind of major growth since the late 1980s and stuff.
Well, actually, technically speaking, is expanding right now at 3% the last 2 years. I don't know where to believe the numbers.
I mean, you can't compare it to somewhere like China or India or something that's posting double that sometimes. But I mean, as for a first world country, it's kind of stabilizing out, which I think is really good. But the thing you mentioned, the thing about too many elderly people in Japan, and I think that that's something that. That's going to be kind of a really big issue, because I mean right now I think
it is the biggest issue.
I mean it's because right now they're spending, I think it's 10% of their GDP on pension, on the Japanese pension and stuff. But I mean the only solution I've really heard that's being talked about seriously is bringing in like a ton of kind of low skilled immigrant workers to buff out like the And it just, to me, it just doesn't.
It's funny
make
that
sense
it's funny that you mentioned that, because my wife's friends right now were here yesterday here in Kailua, and we were here on the beach, and they're talking about how in central Tokyo there's no Japanese work in convenience stores or McDonald's or any of the fast food restaurants anymore. So there's all, when they speak Japanese, they always have like order mistakes. What do they call it? Oda mis.
Oh yeah.
Because so many foreigners right now are working in central Tokyo. This is not Japan. This is like in central Tokyo.
In central Tokyo,
are working in the. So sometimes I wonder if there is a quiet, silent immigration happening like that.
I just don't see it really happening in Japan, because they're not going to get. First of all, not a lot of people want to move to Japan for work. It's kind of one of those countries that I think that it's, if for whatever reason, it's less attractive than something like the United States or Canada, which gets a lot more kind of diaspora of people. But
diaspora,
diaspora,
is that like a desirability?
Well, no, it's like a group of like, say, of a certain country that moves to a certain place. Like, so there's. In Canada, there's a huge diaspora of like Chinese.
Oh yeah, like where you can keep your community. Like almost you could say. I heard the word, people use the word ghettos for that. I don't think that's what it is, but
it's not like the United States or Canada where people will phone back to their family back in other countries. Oh, you have to get over here as quick as you can because it's so good. I think Japan is a harder country to kind of integrate into, because you have to be willing to really embrace the culture.
That's interesting.
But I think that's actually a good thing, because like infinite population growth is not the solution. I mean, this whole idea there has to be a replacement population. It works. See, this is the problem I have with Keynesian economics. It's predicated on like essentially infinite growth, and it works as long as growth is sustained at a certain level. But there's no real way to deal with things stabilizing and stagnating, because Japan right now is overpopulated. I mean,
so you interpret it as overpopulated?
Japan needs to. I think a good population that would be sustainable for Japan, and it would even out all the demographics or whatever the problems.
Well,
would
it's
be
interesting.
Like 50 million people.
I've heard that before, that they believe that the actual carrying capacity of the islands is 70 or 80 million.
Yeah, it's probably over what it should be right now. And I mean, of course, technology is going to raise that number considerably. But I think that Japan, honestly, to be a really thriving, stable economy, like you look at countries in Scandinavia that have really lots of land with very low populations, and it's fine to have huge populations to a certain extent, but then we're starting to see what the problems of it, not starting, but like in Bangladesh and India and China, where it's just like runaway and it's crazy. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. The more, because let's say Japan got up to 200 million people, and they started having a ton of new babies. Well, they're going to be in the exact same position.
But that's not the current trend. Is not that at all.
It's going down.
The current trend is 2060. I'm thinking 80, 90 million perhaps. Well, it's interesting, because I think that a lot of people don't talk about this, but like the powers, like the political powers of Japan are all aware of these. Like it's not really talked about in mainstream society, that much, is it really? But I mean, the people who are in control of the levers of society are very. Are they not doing this though? Are they not slowly, not deep? I don't know the word, decreasing, not depopulating. They are decreasing the population right now.
It's just naturally happening, because there's not as many babies being born, but it's really a trend that should be encouraged, and they shouldn't. I know it creates short-term economic problems, but you need to kind of like get it out so you can get back down to a manageable level of like maybe 70 or 80 million, and then by that time, it's going to be a really hard decade or so while Japan manages that.
Well, that's what they're trying to do right now with like printing they're basically, they call it in Japanese kinyu kanwa, which is quantitative easing, right? So that's what they're attempting to do. And the attempt is a gallant one, because of what it tries to do in the attempt is just to keep the wheels, at least keep the society working if they can just hold the deflationary although the deflationary decades were great for Japan, because even yesterday at Waikiki, my friends who all live in Shibuya and central Tokyo, and they're very well paid people, they find Japan and Tokyo so cheap. like what I mean,
Yeah.
not only cheap for price, but cheap for value.
Yeah.
Like in terms of what you get for your quality.
Yeah, I mean that's actually something that's really interesting about Japan. It has one of the lowest inflation rates out of any industrialized country, and pretty much like the wages have not increased in like 30 years. But it's not a
They are
problem because
going up now.
it's only like point. It's just like it's such a small amount of inflation,
Yeah.
which is good. But it also kills Japanese exports, right? Because the yen is so strong, and
I can tell an anecdote to you because I have 2 kids, and like I do okay, but I do okay because I've always watched my money and been careful about things, and like if I can save $2 there by being a smart shopper, I do it.
Yeah.
And you can go. Do you know when you have your kids? You can go to Don Quixote. And you can get, for example, 2 drinks like a Coca-Cola or like sheer convenience drinks. I mean, just like the one person size has always been a convenience size. And you can go to them in Nakameguro, which is Tokyo's most expensive neighborhood, and you can get a bottle for 80 yen.
Really?
80 yen each, and I see them here at the ABC
it's
store
crazy.
and for 3 or 4.
It's crazy.
I mean, Waikiki might be the absolute far end of like the exact in front of the beach.
Yeah, like if you were to go up into Mount Fuji, like one of those, cup ramen things costs like 1,500 yen. I mean, for like a single serving, because it's just like it's kind of like it is here. It takes a lot to get the goods here.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean that's the good thing about Japan is that you can get by on 250,000 yen a month in most places, and even though that's what you would have been making 30 years ago or something. Like when I was a teacher, that's at my average was probably average what I was making. Of course, I was living out in the Inaka, so it was a little bit different. But
I'm going to close the first part of this video right now, which is talking about Hawaii. But I'm going to make a second video right after this about the part 2 of this video about talking about your experiences living in Japan. Because you know what, I think that I love to talk about it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Derek has a really unique. Like I have like the super urban take on living in Japan, but. Derek has quite the opposite, and that's why he likes it. Yeah, well, it's the Tokyo Real Estate Man here with my friend Derek. We got our Shibuyarepublik shirts on, but I can tell you were my first Honolulu customer. I was very, very happy about that, And, well, we're just going to shut I'm going to basically hit stop on the first part of the video here, and thank viewers for, hope you gained some knowledge. Or glean some sort of knowledge from this interesting conversation. I know I have personally.
Yeah.
And I invite you to follow this channel. Any commentary is always welcome here, critical or supportive or otherwise. And I invite you to follow this channel. I do invite you to follow my Instagram, Shibuyarepublik. Is Shibuyarepublik as spelled, but the final character is a K. Or if you're in Shibuya and you just see my red Volkswagen van, I'm there around. I'm always around. Okay, Tokyo Real Estate Man from Nanikai, Kailua with Derek. Signing out.